Hi there, welcome everyone. We will be starting in just a few minutes here. I'd like to give everyone a little bit of time to log on. While we're waiting for more people to log on to this session, feel free to write in where you're listening from, just in the chat function at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Hello from Italy. Great to have you. We, of course, have San Francisco, Boston, a little rainy here today. All right, we'll give it about another 30 seconds for some other attendees to sign on. Hello from Vancouver, Germany, welcome. Nigeria, fantastic. All right, great. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Hult San Francisco Campus Virtual Open House. It's wonderful to have you all here today. Before we begin, I would like to start with a short video clip of the San Francisco campus, just so you have an idea of what we'll be discussing throughout the session. So I'm going to go ahead and play that here.
What drew me to San Francisco was definitely the entrepreneurial startup culture.
It's really the center of innovation and the center of tech, and this is where I want it to be.
For me, it's the sports and outdoor culture.
The weather.
Baker Beach is one of my favorite spots.
There's so many national parks around here.
You can go hiking or you can go sailing for the weekend, go up to Napa Valley.
My favorite thing here at Hult would have to be the international student body.
I love the space because we have become like this amazing family. There's a certain energy here that I just love.
Also by the location, Hult is in downtown San Francisco.
There's networking events and startup launch events almost every night that you can go to. The professors are probably my favorite part about Hult.
You really feel that they want you to succeed.
You've got Uber coming in, you've got Tesla. They're big companies and they're exciting companies.
My career advisor, Laura, is really proactive. She will forward me all these opportunities or things that she thinks are relevant to me.
From our graduating class in August, we currently have at least 88% of that class is employed, and many of those are employed here in the United States and actually here in San Francisco.
I love San Francisco. You don't know what to expect. You don't know who you're going to meet, what you're going to see.
It's an amazing city with a lot going on.
It's the best place to be.
All right. So now I would like to introduce our team and tell you a little bit about what will be going on today. So this will be an interactive virtual event. It'll last roughly an hour and 15 minutes. And during this time, you'll have the chance to hear from Hult San Francisco Associate Dean Adam Reed, Hult Professor Olaf Grote, and then the Head of Career Services, Nav Duda, as well as Molly and Martine, who are members of Hult San Francisco Enrollment Team. They'll all be available at the end of the session to answer any questions that you may have, but please feel free to input questions in the chat function or the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen throughout this entire session. We will address as many of those as we can in the time that we have. Now, I would love to introduce Dean Adam. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been at Hult, and then I'll also have you address why you think Hult stands out as a business school.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Pleasure to meet all of you. We love these opportunities to interact and welcome you to our campus and share a little bit about our school and what makes us different. So my name is Adam Reed. I'm a program dean on the San Francisco campus. I've been with Hult for 6 years. This is my 7th academic year, starting out with our current programs that just started. I'm originally from Seattle, so home of Amazon and Microsoft, Starbucks, the sort of rainy city, also the sort of coffee capital of the United States. I think we're known for being the highest coffee consumption per capita out of the U.S. I think that's largely to compensate for the fact that it is so dreary and rainy up in Seattle. So I moved to San Francisco a little over a decade ago. I fell in love, and haven't left since. So I'm sure that all of you will fall in love with this incredible city as well, for lots of different reasons. Incredible weather. It's never too hot. It's never too cold. It's fairly temperate throughout the year. We have, as you saw in the video, we're right on the ocean, right on the San Francisco Bay. There's not too many places in the world where you can wake up and go surfing over at Ocean Beach and then hop in the car, head to Tahoe and go skiing or snowboarding in the afternoon or for a weekend trip. So pretty remarkable geography here. Unfortunately, I think it's kind of the world's worst kept secret in the sense that, that's why housing prices are so high here. But it's an incredible opportunity to come and explore the city. Obviously, from a professional standpoint, the other big draw to San Francisco is our proximity to Silicon Valley, this incredible startup and sort of entrepreneurial ecosystem. The companies that were mentioned in the video of Google's, Facebook, Salesforce, right? Uber, Lyft. There's plus hundreds and thousands of sort of the next Facebooks and the next Twitters, right? The companies that are redefining how we do business and how we interact and engage with one another. So incredible ecosystem and incredible opportunity to come explore the city and connect and network with some of these companies here. So the second question was about what makes Hult different and what I think we can offer you in terms of your academic experience this year. There's a couple things that I want to highlight. First, hands down, is diversity. Diversity of our student body, diversity of our faculty, the international experience to be able to rotate across cities, across countries, across cultures, and all in this one-year experience. So as you've probably seen from some of the brochures, we represent over 140 different nationalities globally across our campuses, over 100 different languages. And what's unique about those numbers is it's not like we have 2 or 3 countries that represent 50% of our student body, and then the other 50% is those other 137 countries. We really have no majority. There's no one country that makes up more than about 10% of our student body. So what that means is when you walk into a Hult classroom, it's truly like walking into the United Nations. If you have a class of 70 students, you could have students from 40 different countries speaking 30 different languages, and this is really what drives your learning, and it's sort of richness and international aspect of if you're learning about a case, you're learning about a company, you get to explore that from all of these lenses of political, cultural, across languages, across across country borders, right? And that's where the learning really becomes rich and robust. So I always say you'll learn as much from your classmates as you will from your faculty and your readings throughout this year. And the second part that I think really helps Hult stand out is the practical and applied learning. So you will learn theory, you will learn frameworks, but our goal for you this year is to actually be applying these in every project, every course. So we want you to be solving problems and applying the skills that you're learning to solve real world business problems, so that you can go out and continue to solve these problems that we currently don't have the answers for. So I'm really excited to meet all of you, and I'm happy to stick around and answer more questions at the end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That was a great introduction. I now would like to hand this over to Professor Olaf. Olaf, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that way you can share your presentation.
Yes, thank you very much, Brooke, and thank you for Adam leading us into this. I'm going to share my screen in just a half a minute, but I want to express just how excited I too am about seeing the geographic diversity and the cultural diversity of people on this call, from Munich to Vancouver to Lagos, Nigeria. And in fact, I was on calls as early as 5 o'clock this morning with both Germany and with Nigeria, which just goes to show that your professors are just as diverse and as globally embracing as you are. And frankly, I'm already tickled to meet you on one of our campuses and work with you. So it's a privilege to be with you and show you a little bit about one of the content areas that we are taking very seriously now at Hult, which is, of course, the global data economy and what it means for all of us, why it is relevant, and why you need to be thoroughly engrossed in it and get ready for it if you're not already in it. And as you can see from a bit of banter here in the chat function, we also love to have fun, right? There are serious topics of business education and careers, but there's no reason not to have fun while we're teaching, while we're coaching you, and enjoy that, right? Stretching is both a challenge and it's fun. So with that said, let me share my screen. And let's see, where is it? There you go. Give me 1 second here to get to the right file. Okay, there we are. You should be seeing that come up now momentarily. Slides take a little while to load, but you will now see me projected into my slides, hopefully a little bit more engaging. It's also testimony to all of us constantly challenging ourselves to try out new features for the teaching formats to make them more engaging. Look, we are all overdosing on Zoom in one way or another, but there is no reason not to make that appealing, not to make that interactive. And eventually we'll all go into hybrid mode where you'll get the physical presence education with some digital education. And these techniques sort of lead us over into that new era. As you can tell from my title, I'm a professor of strategy, innovation, economics, and a little thing called futures at Hult. And I also work with the executive education group here. And in all of that work, I try to research and then bring to students real world live experiences, assignments, content, speakers, exercises, simulations that play on the intersection of technology innovation, economics and business models, and also consumer futures, market futures. And so what you will see today is a little bit of an example of that, a bit of an outlook. I should also draw your attention to the fact that we've written a book, like many Hult professors out there. This one's called Solomon's Code, Humanity in a World of Thinking Machines, which again talks about artificial intelligence and data science and what it means to practitioners like you. Okay, with that said, let me dive right in. And I would encourage you to use the chat to articulate questions. A Broken team have kindly agreed to take stock of it and to aggregate that so that maybe at the end we can have a Q&A. But we also have some interactive elements looped into the slide run. So be ready for that. Okay, first of all, on the topic of wanting to have fun, what you are seeing here is how the West was won. How the West was won both in terms of the upcoming Halloween here in the United States, which you will be experiencing if you're coming over here eventually, but also when it comes to data science and artificial intelligence. So this is a bit of a metaphor for what I'm about to show you. On the left here, you've got our dean, Ted Ladd, and on the right, you got me dressed up as Darth Vader. You know, this is you get extra credit if you figure out who won the costume contest a few years ago, and you can type that in the chat, and I'll note down your name, and it's a guaranteed A. Of course, that's not the case. Adam is probably yanking my chain here any minute, but you know, what you see here is sort of the high-tech expression of the you know, almost cyborg nature of the human-enhanced you know, data processing dark leader, and the very human cowboy. Ted hails from Wisconsin, and has a wonderful degree of humanity, like many of our staff, and that's why I enjoy working at Hult so much. You know, what's happening with us today is that we are essentially drifting into a world of what's called dataism, right? So it's really the paradigm of data generating economic value and value for us in our personal lives. And as that happens, we need to get the balance right between respecting the customer, respecting the employee, respecting the human, and also then diving full steam ahead into the data economy. How do we get that balance right? how do we harness what experts have called the $3 trillion data frontier? That is an insane amount of value to be harnessed, but we can only do it if we are respectful, responsible, ethical, and human-centric in how we do that, right? And so this is something we constantly explore on our campus through various coursework. Some of it's STEM related, you know, the harder stuff, the science, the technology that you need to get ready for the modern job environment, and the humanity of leading people, negotiating with people, selling to people, moderating, facilitating, mentoring, and coaching, right? Those are unbelievably important. And so is, of course, privacy, respect, okay? So let me unpack all of this a bit and tell you why it is really important for you to get your arms around. Dataism, so this paradigm of generating value from data, is becoming the dominant paradigm of our business models around the world. You may currently be employed in industries that are fairly analog still, that are not embracing digital as much as you want or think should be the case. And then business school and Hult in particular will give you a path to get more of that and bring that into your future employment relationships, okay? So you might in fact be a little frustrated that some of these organizations are not quite there yet, but make no mistake about it, we are going there. And two professor colleagues of mine at Hult and I have recently, just in fact 3 days ago, published an article in the California Management Review that talks about how global digital platforms and their data business models are changing our economies, okay? You can find that under CMR Insights, and the names are, of course, my name, and then Mark Esposito and Terrence Say, two fantastic, highly rated professors who equally speak and publish around the world. But what that's really doing, and what we are warning about, is that this is not just about making money. It's not just about consumer products. It's not just about how we make better products in Industry 4.0, okay? It is also about Society 5.0. We are now changing the very web of how people relate in the economy. And that's not necessarily a negative thing, but we have to get used to it, and we have to define it, and we have to get our arms around it in order to then play into it as business executives. So lots and lots of stuff changing here structurally that leads us into a new era. And all of that is driven by two things: data and artificial intelligence, in the future colliding with brain-computer interfaces, with quantum computing, and of course with non-technology trends. And we always make sure that we teach you on how to take all of those trends into account before making strategic decisions. But data and AI are currently at the center of this new paradigm. What is that driven by in turn? By the fact that we will have trillions of sensors around the world, all gathering data on anything and everything and anybody and everybody. And that includes you, and it includes me. We are now making sensors, which is a type of, which has microchips in them, very simple microchips often. We're making them now more cheaply than we are making 1 grain of rice. Imagine that, 1 grain of rice. That device on the left, cheaper than one of these little grains of rice on the right. That is unbelievable. Think about this. What does this mean? This means that we are now going to be sprinkling sensors all over the place. Not immediately, not next year, but over the next 10 years, we will see a lot more sensors everywhere, in your clothing, in your lighting, in your home, in your car, sprinkled in infrastructure, right? Your glasses or contact lenses, if you wear any, everything, even this scarf. By the way, it's not a scarf, it's a Cambodian krama. Anybody who knows the difference? Even this Cambodian krama, which I brought back from Cambodia, obviously, will have a microchip that senses my body temperature, the outside temperature, and maybe it changes texture at some point, right? We are not that far away from it. In fact, I'm attached to research labs that are crafting those types of technologies today. So the trillions of sensors mean lots and lots and lots of data coming at us. In fact, we are currently at about 41 or so zettabytes of data per year. We are predicting that we will be going to about 175 zettabytes a year And that is frankly an outdated forecast, but it's still the one that's most often quoted. We are currently so overwhelmed by this data avalanche that we're getting thanks to COVID, thanks to all kinds of new technology developments, that it's very hard to estimate. My personal estimate is that we will probably double that amount by 2030. So slightly longer time frame, but much larger data. Now, here's the thing. The more important aspect of the slide is the red line on the bottom, which says that 99.5% of all of that data we're currently generating is not labeled, it is not analyzed, we have not yet made sense of it. And that means that there is an inordinate amount of noise, of course, that we're generating, but that noise is not garbage. That noise is a potential treasure trove of insight that we can all harness, structure business models around, make sense of, and then sell, market, okay? Carefully, responsibly, and ethically, but that is where things are going. Now, what that means is, and this is sort of the professor in me now saying, I'm going to have to give you a better lens to look through as you think about this, right? The ability of a business leader to think well is incredibly important, to have good business judgment, right? So every framework, every tool we teach you is not just there to apply and forget about, it is to shape your thinking, to shape your judgment capability. When I started out in my business career, that's what my mentor said to me is, Olaf, the biggest thing that people will judge you by is your own judgment capability, business judgment capability. So ability to think comes with new lenses, right? The lenses here are 3 shifts in value creation and economic power, okay? What am I talking about? Shift number 1, from things to insights. The car of the future, electrified and at least reasonably autonomous, maybe level 4, level 5 autonomy is still far away, and we can talk about this in the Q&A if you like, will generate 4,000 gigabits of data every day, one single car. Think about that. Now multiply that by the sales numbers of cars that are going to be level 4 autonomous and electrified, and you're starting to build awareness for the data avalanche that's coming just from cars, okay? So now, that is not just the important thing to remember. The other important thing to remember is what you're seeing here on the right, which is that we are now migrating value creation in a car from the hardware to the software, the compute platform, and the sensors and the data, okay? We are now seeing the mobility industry transformed literally into mobility rather than car making, okay? And with that come new business models. We get smarter on people in the car. What are they doing? Entertaining themselves, maybe just relaxing, or maybe socializing with others inside the car, outside the car. Maybe they're gazing out through the windows, or maybe they're working, okay? There are apps that we can develop that will help speak to those needs. That's where most of the value creation will be for the car, is data-driven. That doesn't mean car making is not important. There is still the big importance in physical design, interior design, ergonomics. Humans are physical animals. Part of our intelligence is our body, not just our head. So yes, car making will still have value in hardware, but slowly but steadily, it will be outweighed by software and services that are digital. This shows you then also how the world is changing in terms of where power is shifting for the market. If you look at the left side here, you see the old commanding heights of industry, as we said, or the economy. And that's mostly heavy industry, engineering, oil and gas, banking, right? One exception, and that's Microsoft. Now you look at the right here, and I'm going to step out of the way, 2017, okay? And all of a sudden you see that it's all tech, right? Microsoft is now in company of all the big tech companies that you see, notably the American and Chinese tech companies, right? With Europe quite far behind, with exceptions. There's SAP and some other apps, but they're not nearly as big as these just yet. And they're not consumer facing, right? And in consumer lies data. And so you see that the power here is shifting from the old commanding heights that we're all physical, heavy industry, right? Very localized to the global digital platforms with their data business models. So think about the power as we shift from things to insights. Power migrates from the older economy to the new economy. We are now seeing $2 trillion valuations for some of these companies and the hollowing out of the physical economy. Now that's what we wrote about, and we have to change that, bring everybody else along, but that's the power reality we're looking at. So we have to face it. Shift number 2, from west to east, okay? What do I mean by that? Well, look at this. We are now looking at China and Asia Pac growing more when it comes to the modern global data economy than the United States and Europe. That doesn't mean the United States and Europe are not important. Of course, they're important from a number of angles, okay? But clearly, the high growth on data and digital is now in those areas. It will probably become a balance, a multipolar world, right? Or at least a bipolar world. So that means that we have to get used to lots of innovation on data coming out of Asia rather than Europe and America, okay? That's a mind shift that is new to us, that you, of course, are growing into now with your careers, but that didn't used to be the case until about 10, 15 years ago, if that, right? So this is also articulated in looking at the top 50 global data giants in 2018. And we're defining data giants a bit liberally here. These are, companies in hardware and software that focus on data and cognitive technologies like AI. And clearly what you see here in purple is the Americans, followed by the Chinese. But this is morphing, this graph, morphing literally month by month to where the pink bubbles are becoming bigger, okay? The American bubbles are sort of staying the same, and the European bubbles are sort of staying the same. So relative to the West, the East is definitely coming up hard and fast. Shift number 3, from surveying to surveillance, or surveilling. And that is a big shift. What does this mean? It means surveying means you probe, you poll, you do research, okay? And you come back and you abstract, you analyze, you diagnose, and you have conclusions. Surveilling is literally minute by minute, keeping tabs of what's happening in a particular situation. That means including you and me, because that's where the data is, remember? So if you look at this chart here, for instance, from the 4th Industrial Revolution, look at that blue box in the middle, in the upper half, okay? There's a product in there. I think it shows a car, but let's pretend it's a light, just like I have one above me, or you might have one in front of you or behind you. That light is being manufactured by somebody in some factory. Now remember the trillion sensors. We are now seeing that blue space around that manufactured item of the lamp taking on different meaning. It is a semantic space, which means it's a description of how the lamp is made, who produced it, what the cost structure is, what the pricing is, et cetera, okay? And that helps the lamp maker upgrade it, upsell it, fix it, okay? But increasingly, this blue space is now also, thanks to the trillion sensors, becoming smart on you, because it can now gauge, just like in Amazon, who is in the room, what's their identity, what's their speech pattern, are they tired, are they sick, are they happy, are they healthy, who are they with, who are they looking at, who are they talking to, right? How often is the room occupied, with how many people? If you're a building manager or a security manager, you love that kind of information. If you are a consumer digital platform, you love that information because, of course, you want to sell people things that they need. And the more you know about them, the better you can sell them things, right? That's exactly what Amazon does. So this is merely, frankly, a fairly low-cost extension of the Amazon model. So we are creating the digital nervous system of society, right? We are sensing, analyzing, learning, okay, and hopefully responding, and everything respectfully to the data signals we're getting. And you, my friends, are part of the observable set. So they're observing you and me, and we are becoming part of the products, part of the digital nervous system of society. That is immensely beneficial, and it can be immensely fruitful for business people, but it is also treacherous because right about now, you will of course say, well, what about my privacy, right? And what about me knowing what they're using the information for? What about transparency? What about explainability? What about bias in the data that they're collecting? What if I'm smiling into the camera, but I'm actually feeling blue, or the other way around? So yes, these are issues that we teach on at Hult and that you need to master in order to make this new horizon really feasible and sustainable. So this is now becoming more and more commonplace. What you're seeing here is somebody in a virtual psychologist chair, a therapist, okay? These are psychotherapy apps that are already out there. WooBot is on Facebook, for instance, and they're also using these technologies to analyze you in job interviews. They will analyze what your psychometrics are, how authentic you act when you talk about your sales track record or your passions in life or whatever kind of business role you want to get. Then they compare you to the competitor set for the same position. And then they compare all of that to the people on the inside of the company that are already doing the job really well. So as you can tell, the power is shifting to those who hold the smart algorithms and who mine the data, not so much you as the interviewee. And that's a brave new world we have to get used to, and we have to shape it responsibly and with respect and dignity for the human. But it is here to stay. I don't think it's going to go away, but you know, I'll let you challenge me on that if you like. In fact, I think we're going forward. Elon Musk has now agreed, or has now announced, I should say, that he will be going into the human brain this year, human trials. Kernel, that is a competitor sort of in a similar space, has just showcased its own non-invasive skull cap. It's like a helmet that does similar things. And we are now starting to decipher what is happening in your brain. Because don't forget, right now, we can only understand and simulate, I should say, model maybe 1,000, maybe a couple of thousand neurons in your head. But in the future, we can model millions, and we can understand how they interact, what the phenomena are that spring from that, how you make decisions, what you think, how to become better self-aware, how to become better aware of others, and so on and so forth. We can enhance your memory. We can help you bridge and mitigate Alzheimer's, even blindness, okay? There's lots and lots of promise here, you know, for people who, let's say, were in car accidents and have been traumatized, where parts of the brains are disconnected. We can fix that. And of course, it's also scary because the brain cannot be, you know, patched over, upgraded like an iPhone, right? Once you put stuff into the brain, how do you get it back out? Okay, so lots and lots of opportunity for us to shape the data paradigms coming out of this development. Think about the data that we're going to be generating. There is that 100 billion neurons in your head. That connects to the 340 trillion IP addresses that we are generating in the future, right? Remember, with all these trillion sensors, we are now putting all these IP addresses out there. Everything around you will have an IP address. I'm obviously exaggerating a little bit, but you know, we're already on that path where more and more things get smarter. So as these external IP addresses are connecting to the internal IP addresses, which is just another neuron in your brain, we are connecting the outside with the inside. And we're hoping that the people who do that with us are responsible, they know what they're doing, they're transparent with you, right? But there is tremendous opportunity here if we are ethical and transparent about this. What are we doing with all that data? We are finding needles in the haystack, and we are finding more value in the haystack itself. So at Hult, you will learn data science if you so choose, and in a number of degrees, we have injected data science. We have discrete data science degrees, and they will teach you how to find a a needle, an insights needle that is tremendously valuable in a haystack. And as you do that, you reorganize, you structure, you label the hay in the haystack so that the hay itself becomes valuable. Isn't that ingenious? In fact, my little advisory think tank, Cambrian.ai, is in fact doing this right now to talk to clients about trend analysis, finding the needle, and reorganizing the haystack in the process. Incredibly valuable when you can do that on the human brain, when you can do that on the physical environment. That's the $3 trillion data opportunity we're talking about. The first level is clean up the data we have. The second level is safeguard, package, ownership assure, privacy assure the data that we're going to be generating, and then push that into a trading mechanism, okay? So let me stop here and go to the poll. I want to hear your opinion. Is it a good thing or a bad thing that we are moving toward a surveillance economy? Let me know your opinion.
Professor, would you like to give everyone about 1 minute?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, great.
Don't be shy, put it in there. There's no right or wrong. It's just good to get your own thinking going and to sort of put a stake in the ground. And then as you go through our Hult degrees, you will probably revise your opinion a bit and be more nuanced about it.
All right, we have about 5 more seconds here. Okay, and I'm going to end the poll.
Thank you. All right, good, say some. Both say most of you, and that's, of course, the right answer, okay? Of course, as business people, look, I'm an entrepreneur, okay? As business people, we are bound to be optimistic about the future and that we can have a say in how it's shaped. So naturally, we want to see the good. I want to see the good, and there is a lot of good. And as we're seeing from a lot of these data and AI scandals right now, that is not a given. And so we have to safeguard it and work with it. But believe me, the data economy is here to stay. So we need all of you to get the right tools to help all of us at Hult to shape this new $1 trillion data horizon. So yes, great answer. I'm glad we're already on that track. Okay, so how do we do that? I'm going to be in the final stretch here now. Well, we need to make sure that we take that surveillance data, okay, and make sure that it stays positive and good surveillance, okay? And for that to happen, we have to make sure we get individual buy-in from consumers and from enterprises. So we have to put safeguards around your data footprint, okay? So here's another article that I authored in Wired magazine that you can look up and read up on it. I'm not going to dive into all the details here. Suffice it to say that we are being, of course, analyzed every day. This is from the New York Times. You can look it up. This was a reporter who showed how we are all being followed every day across various websites. The lines in red and the red dots are those trackers that follow you across websites. Behind the scenes, somebody triangulates you, figures out what equipment you used, where you are, what your patterns are of roaming the web every day, and then putting together some conclusions about you and some metadata. And that then gets combined with other metadata they have on you, and that gets sold to advertisers, to political influencers, and so on and so forth. Now, if handled well and respectfully, that is part of the $3 trillion data economy. But the emphasis is on respectfully. For corporations like the ones that you're going to be living most of your career in, or maybe you're starting your own, who knows? This is an issue because now somebody out there with this kind of data science capability can track and triangulate Anne, Jim, and Peter, who are all in different roles around the company, who all have different communication patterns, who leave the firewall go outside, leave data footprints, and those get harvested and triangulated so that a data broker might very well understand what a given employer of yours is up to next, right? So this is a big issue, not just for consumers, but also for enterprises. And we're in the middle of a research project on that. The problem cannot be overcome with privacy charters. It would take you 34 hours to read all the privacy agreements on your iPhone alone. Clearly cumbersome and done so that they can't be read front to end. So not a good solution. And that's also why the 76% of all users of digital products in the US say, they're increasingly concerned. 45% of them are more worried now rather than less worried. And clearly, 79% of them want a compensation. But this is where things break down, and this is where we need you, because there are different notions of what data footprints are worth. We know it's in the trillions in total, but how do we structure the market so that we can trade data responsibly and effectively? You can see the data here on the left on what individuals think their data is worth. On what data platforms think your data is worth, and then the data on the right that has been quoted by scholars who are advocating for consumers. And you can see the vast rift in estimates between the data service providers and the consumer and consumer advocates. And so we need to close that gap. We need to figure out what the true value of data and packaged and privacy assured data is. And that can only be done through a market. The market is vast. 275 million internet users are already taking action, want to take more action across Europe and the US. That's out of a total base of about 856 million total users across these two regions, but they have no way to transact. There is no way to have a say in your data, whether it's consumer or enterprise data, which is why we got to step beyond the bilateral trading that's happening right now. It's all happening behind the scenes between the ad networks, the digital platforms, and the data brokers. These are bilateral trades usually happening in multiple tiers, and it's all veiled and it's behind the scenes. We've got to make this more transparent with a data market design. If you want to know more about this, we have published a white paper. It's on my website under Cambrian.ai. I'm happy to type the URL into the chat later. But we have worked with Hult students and Hult alumni to come up with this data market design. We have to make it transparent, just like the stock market, just like the labor market, okay? So why wouldn't we do the same thing for data, okay? And even better than the labor market, this needs to be fully transparent with no hidden assets and with a lot of privacy safeguards, so you can claim your data, your employer can claim their data, and assign licenses to that data, and then trade away those licenses. For that, we need to have auctions at first to figure out the right data points to create a market equilibrium, and then open it up to freer multi-sided trading. That is essentially it. If you want to know more about how to do that, I've got a couple of slides here, but I won't go into that here. I've voiced it over a bit already, but I'm happy to take questions offline. Let me just end on the note that increasingly your future employers, maybe your current employers, are seeing this as a competitive differentiator. They're seeing this as a way to appeal also to the younger generations that are very diversity, sustainability, privacy aware now, and that want to see more equity and fairness. So time is in our favor, but of course, the more time passes before such solutions are put in place, the worse it is for privacy and for digital dignity. That's why we are called upon as entrepreneurs, as designers, as strategists, as leaders, to step in there and make these solutions equitable so we can reach the $3 trillion data frontier that we also optimistically want. So with that said, remember 3 shifts: things to insights, west to east, surveying to surveilling, okay? And I thank you for your attention. You've got my coordinates here. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn, and of course by email. And I'm happy to open for Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. To those that recently joined, we will be now switching this over to Nav Dutta, who runs the, Olaf, if you don't mind, I'm just going to stop sharing your screen here.
Sure.
Who's the head of career services. So we will let him speak for a little bit, and then we will do a Q&A at the end with our enrollment advisors, with Professor Grote, and with Nav as well. So Nav, if you would like, I will let you go ahead and share your screen.
Great, thank you. I noticed at the beginning of this call, we had somebody dialing in from Vancouver. I always love that, being a proud Canadian myself. It's always good to see. The other thing that I was thinking of as Professor Olaf was talking about data privacy and this idea of a data market. I remember not so long ago when Sidewalk Labs from Alphabet trying to penetrate the city of Toronto to buy a massive chunk of land and set up, I forget how many sensors, hundreds of thousands of sensors, to track movement and collect data. And it was widely rejected by residents in the city, and predominantly because I don't think they understood how was Google going to use this information. And I don't think that level of transparency was made clear. But yeah, I was just talking to a friend of mine about it the other day, how I personally wish that the project had gone through, because I think it would be super interesting to see what insights we could kind of derive. But let's talk about careers and what the career development team does at Hult. I've got on this screen not all, but most of the faces of our career development team across all of our campuses. The interesting thing about these individuals, you've had a career development team, no doubt, in your past, in your undergraduate, or if you've done a previous master's, and they help you with the basic stuff, the foundational career development things like your resume and your LinkedIn. And these days we do a lot of work with students around their digital brand and digital persona, right? But particularly because a lot of career engagement is done online in terms of interviewing for jobs and whatnot. But we also help with some of the very, very, very foundational stuff, which is, who are you? What are your strengths? What are your interests? What are your career goals? And we take students through that kind of journey of self-awareness. We help with market and industry connections, right? So we do a lot of work with our alumni, and I'm going to share with you a couple of events that we are holding this week, right? Which are for our students that are kind of fueled by the support of our alumni. And then, of course, interview coaching and job search practices. And so tactics and different nuances that you should be aware of, particularly if you're looking for work abroad. The key thing to take away from this team on this slide here is that they've got experience working with thousands of international students and job seekers every year. So they know what works when it comes to launching an international career or searching for work outside of your home country, how to transition from one industry to another, one function to another. This really is their key competency. I've got on this slide here kind of the methodology by which we work. Career development kind of follows this sequence or this path, if you will, and we've affectionately called it the roadmap, right? And ROAD is an acronym for reflect, observe, accelerate, and drive. And so essentially throughout your journey at Hult, we're going to take you through this idea of self-exploration, understanding who you are and kind of where you fit within the employment kind of market. So with that, we do a lot of exploratory exercises and events. So if you've never worked as a consultant and you wanted to know kind of what does the day in the life of a consultant look like, we hold alumni panels with our consulting alums, right? So some of them coming from, like the one we did last year here was, an alum from Deloitte, BCG, but then also boutique consulting firms, right? So you get an idea of what it's like to work with kind of the big boys, and then what's it like to work within a boutique agency, right? So following market exploration, we start to kind of hone in on your targets, right? So what are your career targets? Industry, function, geographical targets, and then how do we start to map out kind of your best course of action with regards to kind of networking and the types of events that you should be attending and types of companies you should be applying to. and then ultimately, helping you earn internship and job offers, and for some of you, salary negotiation with those job offers, which comes up particularly with a subset of our MBA graduates who are maybe in a position to better negotiate than someone who's kind of early career. But no doubt, our career advising team can help you with that. We get started very early, and we promote students to start early thinking about their careers. So, even before you take your seat in class in September, we get you to think through our pre-arrival period, the summer period, about kind of what your targets are, so we can start to kind of hone in on some of the strategic elements around your job search. But in terms of starting early, we've launched our intakes this year, throughout the course of September and kind of early October. And, we hit the ground running, right? We hit the ground running. And so between last week and this week, we had Bloomberg last week, which was, Discover Bloomberg with the Hult alums. So our alums at Bloomberg put on these virtual events to get students acclimated to kind of what are the types of roles at Bloomberg, how do you apply, how do you put your best foot forward with your application, and then of course interview coaching. So throughout the recruitment process, how do you set yourself up for success? We've partnered with the recruitment team at PwC over in the EU, particularly Luxembourg, who's hosting 3 events this week for our students around kind of virtual networking. So this is a way for PwC and the recruitment team there to feel out our students, to get an idea of kind of their interest and their fit, with PwC. So there's 3 events this week that our students are, have the opportunity to attend. And then this evening, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, I'm sitting in Boston. We've got Find Your Fit with Amazon, or Find Your Fit at Amazon. So we've got quite a few Hult alums working at Amazon, and they've affectionately called themselves the Amazonians. So it's like this secret society of Hult alums at Amazon. But some of these alums are going to be working with us throughout the year, quarterly, to run these kind of referral events, right? So they're going to educate students on the types of roles that are at Amazon that are fits with kind of business school students and their capabilities. And then they're going to suggest how a student can, one, craft their application material and their online branding material. And then they're going to come back in December and do short interviews with students, ultimately to determine who they could refer internally as a candidate for roles. So super interesting, super cool events. We've started super early. So again, always advocating for an early start. In terms of advising, on the advising side, it's only been 6 weeks, and we've already conducted 650 face-to-face, of course, 6 feet apart with face masks on, face-to-face meetings with our students. So these are career advising appointments. 250 appointments done virtually via Zoom in the last 6 weeks. So you can tell the students that are on campus are all equally excited to get started on their career development. And so my point in showing you this is, irregardless of whether you are coming to campus or you're going to study in a hybrid model, we've got an advisor available to you to help you with your career goals. And so with that said, on behalf of the career development team globally, we're looking forward to meeting you soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was great. All right, perfect. So now we are going to open this up to a Q&A. Again, feel free to ask our members of the enrollment team, Molly and Martine, any questions that you may have. And of course, we have Nav, Associate Dean Adam, and then also Professor Olaf Gart here for questions as well. Also, for those of you who joined a little bit later, I apologize for any difficulties that you had logging on, and glad to see that you were able to make it. So again, feel free to input any questions in the chat function and go right ahead. And if you want to start first, Molly, I'll let you and Martine introduce yourselves. And if you want to give any updates on what's happening with Hult's programs as well, that would be great.
Yeah, so hi everybody. My name is Molly Ansel, and I am the Director of Enrollment for Hult Master Programs here in San Francisco. So I work with the Master in International Business, the Master in International Marketing, the Master in Finance, and the Master in Business Analytics programs. Hope to see you all in one of those programs come next year. wanted to just give you all a bit of an overview here on the application process. We do have a date coming up that would be important for you. We have an instant decision day actually coming up on November 13th. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you. Yeah.
So, okay, so our instant decision day is on November 13th for those of you that do wish to apply to a program here for 2021. Those January and September start dates are available depending on which program that you're interested in. So it would be a great time if you want to get a quick decision, then you can get a decision on November 13th. So if you just want to connect it with admissions at hult.edu, or if you could put that in the chat box to everybody. If you want to email us there, we can go over some additional steps. That will keep you in line for some great scholarship opportunities as well, including a full scholarship for a second master at Hult, which is a $27,000 scholarship award. So once again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to admissions@hult.edu or ask any questions here now.
Great. And Martijn, did you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, thanks, Brooke. My name is Martijn. I'm the enrollment manager. I work with Molly in the San Francisco enrollment office. I work with all the programs, so that would include MBA, EMBA, as well as our master's programs and specialized programs. And I'm also an alum from the MIB program, so if you want to ask me any specific questions about my experiences, I'm happy to share those pieces with you. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And I know that the professor has to head out at about noon, so I would like to get this question out to him first, if you guys don't mind. Megan would like to know, how are lecturers working now regarding the pandemic, and how many students are there usually in a lecture?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Brooke. And hello, and Megan, greetings to Munich, and thanks for the question. So currently, we are preparing for what we call the HyperFlex classroom. What that means is that the campuses are starting to put in place protocols whereby you will have a classroom that would usually have 60 or 70 students, only have, I don't know what the correct number is, Brooke, keep me honest here, but it could be something like 20, 25, 30 students, socially distant, or I should say physically distanced, because it's not social distancing. And then the rest will join by Zoom, and you will have a choice. Whether you feel safe enough to come to campus or whether you would prefer to stay on Zoom. And obviously there are many very personal and private considerations here, such as whether you're living with an elderly person or whether you have health conditions and things of that nature. And the upside of then staying digital is that you can attend class from almost anywhere. Of course, there is the typical business problem that we all have to get used to in our business careers, which is time zone management, right? So that's where we are going at the moment. In San Francisco, we are still purely digital at this point. We are doing well on the numbers, but not quite well on the numbers of infections, but not quite well enough for the governor to say you can open up for physical education. Now, that will change over hopefully the next 2 or 3 weeks. And then we all back in the classroom in that HyperFlex mode. So by the time you sign up, hopefully it will be a non-issue and we'll all be in HyperFlex and eventually back into full physical mode, right? So I think, what I want to say with that is that I've been impressed by the local campus teams, including the one in San Francisco, managing that transition. It's a hard one. We are all having to get used to it. But there is so much innovation here. You can do things digitally you can't do physically, and of course vice versa, right? But we cannot underestimate the innovation power of digital. So that's how it's happening, Megan. In my courses, you might see me short-term teaching online from my home office. You might also see me on a Hult classroom teaching online, and then eventually all being back in the classroom. That's the picture.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, we do have a question for either Molly or Martijn. I am not sure who it's from. I know quite a few of you received my Zoom link, so we have a ton of Brooke McElwee on here. But this person asked, if I apply for the EMBA program for the November 13th Instant Decision Day and am accepted, how many years can I defer my enrollment?
Sure, I can answer this question. So it's really all the programs are gonna be along the same lines with this, but you get a 1-year deferment from the start term that you would originally want to choose. So let's say you end up with September start term, you get to the following year, September, to defer your seat.
Perfect, thank you. And thank you, Albert Lee. Much appreciated for that question. Another question that we have, Molly, I'll probably give this one to you. How many electives do students normally take in the MIB program?
Yeah, thanks, Brooke. And thank you to whoever asked this question. It's a great one. The MIB program, just to clarify, is the Master International Business program here at Hult. You normally would take 4 electives, which would be during the last few months of the program. If you do go on to do the dual degree program, as I mentioned before, we are offering a significant scholarship, a full scholarship for that second master. That's a part of our dual degree program. You'd have to take 5 electives. Many of our electives are offered over long weekends and are quite flexible. So, there's lots of different opportunities and even opportunities to go to different campus locations when we are able to travel, which we do expect, to be the case for next summer for these students, and certainly would be the case for anybody starting next year.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other questions, again, for enrollment, for the dean, for NAV about careers? I'll give you all just a couple more seconds to enter those into the chat function. Right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. It was great to have you all. Oh, I'm sorry, we do have one more. What is the undergraduate cutoff mark for admission to the EMBA program? Molly or Martijn, would you be able to answer that?
Yes. Would you mind actually clarifying on that question? The undergraduate cutoff, what exactly do you mean with that?
I will let them answer in the chat function. Just a moment, please. While we're waiting for that, we do have another question. What proportion of international students at Hult have been able to secure full-time jobs? Nav, if you don't mind answering that, that would be great. Oh, we have you on mute. There we go.
Yeah, sorry, good question. So we're currently collecting data on our class of 2020, so the folks that graduated in August, just a few months ago. So typically we look at 3 months after graduation for the MBA and 6 months after graduation for masters and for undergraduate. So I think the best way to answer this question is if you go to hult.edu and under your respective program. So if you're interested in say Master of Finance or Marketing, go to Masters. You'll see a careers booklet, and you'll see the employment rates by programs for the graduating class of August 2019. And then stay tuned on Hult.edu. Somewhere around mid-January, February, we'll publish the MBA figure for August 2020 grads. And then in the spring, you'll see the Masters 2020 grads. But just to give you a highlight, it fluctuates depending on program, anywhere between 87 and 92%.
All right, great, thank you. This can go to Molly or to Nav. If I take the virtual Master of Business Analytics program, do I also get career or enrollment support?
Yeah, so it does depend with our virtual, sorry, which program was it? Was the question for?
If I take the virtual Masters of Business Analytics program, do I also get career support and enrollment support?
You certainly get enrollment support through the process as far as career support. that is something that you can add on as a part of your overall package for the program.
Perfect, thank you. Martine, we are going to go back to that question from Albert. So the question was, what is the undergraduate cutoff mark for admission to the EMBA program? And then they clarified saying the minimum undergraduate GPA mark achieved for admission to the master's program or the EMBA program.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So we look at every application holistically. It's not just the GPA we solely focus on. It's very important that we also focus on your extracurriculars and the work experience you've done. On average, our GPA is around, I would say, a 3.5, but we don't necessarily have a minimum to adhere to.
All right, perfect, thank you. It looks like we have one more question here, and this can go to someone in enrollment, so Molly or Martine. Have we seen a difference in the variety or numbers of electives given to, or due to COVID, rather?
It's a great question. I wouldn't say that we have seen any kind of effect in terms of the variety of the electives. Our programs, we've been very flexible and very adaptive with our programs. And as was previously said, our programs are in hybrid mode here in San Francisco, mainly virtual, but we've been able to switch to that model pretty seamlessly. So electives are, have simply been offered in the virtual model, if not, in person. And as mentioned before, we are anticipating being able to offer electives in person and probably potentially virtually as well for students next year.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you again to everyone that joined. Thank you to our panelists. All of your sessions were really insightful and incredibly helpful, I'm sure. Again, if you have any questions about the Instant Decision Day, or if you're looking to apply, please email admissions@hult.edu that you can see just on the screen here. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Great to see you. Thanks for joining, and we hope to see you soon.
Nice to be with you. Bye-bye.